こんにちは、ハリケーンフットボールです。今回の教材は、パルマの鈴木彩艶に関する動画です。鈴木彩艶には、ウエストハム移籍の噂が出てきましたが、すでに交渉は進展しているということで、代理人を通しての交渉が進められているようです。ウエストハムのファンチャンネルも複数リアクションしていますが、今回の動画では、この鈴木彩艶の獲得に非常に前向きであり、なぜ良い補強になるのかを語っています。3000万ポンドで獲得できるなら手が出るといい、1年後にはもう手が届かない存在になるということから、今が買うチャンスだと言わんばかりです。実際にどのように話しているのか、チェックしてみましょ
う。Anyway, right, are we ready to discuss Suzuki? Because I'm looking forward to this one. ExWHUEmployee said that's our number one target. We're already in advanced talks. So it sounds like the club's been trying to get things done on the quiet, which is good. It makes a change for once. But I want to know about him. I've seen him play one game slot. One game. That's all I've seen him do. However, I think he's one of those players that you've heard of, perhaps haven't seen play much. I think the perfect example is another player we're linked to is Richard Rios. I think everybody's heard of him, but who's actually seen him play kind of thing. But there's a lot of hype about Suzuki. Man United heavily linked to him this summer as well. There's one statistic that stands out for me that I look at. I think this looks alarmingly good, which we'll get into in a second. But before we do that, tell me about him. What have you got? The floor is yours.
Well, so as we mentioned, he's a young keeper. He's 6'3", and he is built like a tank. Like he is a specimen. And I think that when you look at him and you talk about him, one thing that has to be mentioned before anything else really is the ceiling with him is huge. And you mentioned you'd seen him in a game, and we kind of discussed that beforehand, where he made this incredible save against Scott McTominay, and his reactions. Particularly for that, you know, the pace with which McTominay hit a free kick, and it looked like Suzuki didn't really do anything, but then you watch it again in the replay and he just gets a really strong fingers to it. And I think that's one of his overwhelming attributes. It's his physicality, presence, but also the ability to make those quick reaction saves, to get across the goal so quickly. And I think that's where he really excels. And Parma are a bit of a funny one. You know, they have some really incredibly talented players, and I kind of know that we are looking at Parma. We've watched a lot of them because they have this mix of young, very talented players who I think have high ceilings. And when you look at Suzuki, he's probably the pick of the bunch. You know, Angione Boni's just gone to Inter Milan, and when you look at them now, he is very much the sort of jewel in their crown.
Came from Japan, had a year in Belgium, but just a year in Serie A. Does that sort of lack of experience, albeit he is 22, just away to turn 23 before the season starts, does that bother you, or do you think this is the right time to go get him? Because if you were to wait a further year, he might be out of the reach of West Ham.
I think it's definitely the right time to go and get him, as there are going to be these worries about, you know, lack of experience. But I think whenever you look at any sort of young goalkeeper, that's always going to be part of the question. And as you quite rightly say, this is the kind of player that has already been linked with Man United in the past. And if you don't move now, you're potentially going to miss out. And one of the things that I've kind of heard rubbished already is that he has got this supposed €40 million release clause. Now, I mentioned Angione Boni earlier. They've already sold him to Inter Milan, and they sold him for quite a low amount in comparison to what I think people are expecting. I think it would be the same with Suzuki. I think they'd also sell under that release clause. And I think anything under £30 million, complete no-brainer in my opinion, because when you, I'm going to sound very cynical and people might roll their eyes, but when you look at the wider picture and the fact that he offers you something not only totally different because he's from the Japanese market, but he's also, you know, he's got Ghanaian heritage. So from a marketing opportunity, he's almost a unique prospect. And not only does he give you that gateway to the Asian market, but he gives you, you know, part of the Ghanaian market as well. And I think he's the kind of player and presence in goal as well. He's very talkative, shouting. He likes to shout at his defenders. And how often have we heard West Ham fans say, we need someone who does that.
Yeah.
We need someone who's going to kind of communicate. And it's not all positives. There are some weak parts, and the inexperience that you mentioned is definitely one of them. I've seen people kind of wax lyrical about his distribution and his kicking. I think that's kind of one of the weaker parts of his game at the moment. It will obviously improve the more he plays, but the real strength of his distribution is his throwing. And he's got an excellent throw and an eye for a throw as well. You know, quite a lot of the sort of positive moves Palmer have made have been from Suzuki releasing something quickly and even just like cannoning it with his arm up the pitch. He's got a really long throw. So I think while the kicking may take a little bit longer to kind of refine, one of my bugbears for ages has been when Bowen is looking to create space or he's looking to break, and Areola or Fabianski just tend to kind of hold on to it too long. And I think that would be something that could easily add a few goals next season and be something that really helps us ease pressure and gain yards up the pitch. So for me, I think kicking needs a bit of work. Maybe the claiming of crosses, but he does like to punch. So you kind of got to weigh that up. And you know, again, if you can punch it instead of catching it and potentially opening yourself up to all the loopholes that come with that, you know, centre back muscling you off the ball and it rolls out your hands. If you can punch it away and get it to someone like Souček or Bowen, whoever it might be, then that's a real positive as well. So it's definitely a signing that I really like the idea of. The cynical part of me is already a bit like, can I see West Ham doing that though?
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? It's even when you're being optimistic, saying they'll take a lot less than the release clause, it's still towards the £30 million mark, which is very, very expensive for anyone really to spend on a goalkeeper. Goalkeepers traditionally are the cheapest position in your team, so 30 million's a hefty sum, and that's without the context of West Ham's financial situation, in the context that you'd imagine we won't be selling Areola this summer, therefore we're not bringing any money in from selling a goalkeeper. We're replacing a goalkeeper that left on a free in Fabianski. So it's not like, you know, Emerson and Doof, where you'll be recouping some of that money immediately. That's not at play here. So that's why I feel like it's maybe a little bit optimistic because of the transfer side of things. I guess to play devil's advocate with the inexperience thing, I actually think maybe you could argue he's got a lot of experience for a keeper of his age, you know, not even 23 yet, and he's just had a full season in Italy's top flight, a full season in Belgium, played for Japan's national team. I've seen he started 10 goals in the World Cup 10 games in the World Cup qualifiers. So I assume he's Japan's number one, although he was on the bench the last 2 games, but I don't know if they were just rotating and trying things out or something. So in terms of his age, he's actually got a lot of experience. It's not really his fault he doesn't have more. It's just simply an age thing. I want to apply a little bit of context to what you said regarding his kicking and distribution. How do Parma play? Do they want him to play out from the back? Do they encourage him to receive the ball from defenders, hold on to it, invite the press, and then play it out, or do they encourage him to perhaps get rid of it a little bit quicker?
I'd say they're more sort of counter-attack orientated.
Yeah.
And if they can beat the press by passing it back to him and, you know, trying to utilize his kicking, they'll do that 100%. But I would generally say that they're much more counter-attack focused, in the sense that they won't look to absorb pressure, because I think defensively they've been quite weak. I say quite weak.
Yeah.
They've been very weak this season, but it's a case of they know their strengths lie in their pace on the counter, and the smaller players they have, like Bernbau, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But someone like him who links up the play really well and can get it to an Ange Boni, or someone like that who can outmuscle players or utilize their pace. That's very much how they'll play. Not really looking to draw a press or invite pressure onto themselves. So while I kind of mentioned that his kicking accuracy isn't the best. I think it's more a case of that's just from dead balls and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense then. I mean, the statistic that stood out for me, I mean, you've already mentioned it in regards to dealing with crosses. He's very high up in terms of the percentiles when it comes to coming and, I say, getting the ball, dealing with the cross. As you've given the context there, it's punching rather than catching. But he seems like he's quite commanding of his box in that regard, something I feel like we lack with both Areola and Fabianski. I don't think neither were really good at that area or that aspect of the game. How important, and this is the context of Sloth now, how important is it for you that we get in a new number one this summer?
For me, I think it's one of the biggest areas we need to improve. I know that the old cliche is you build from the back, and that's how great teams are made. I still very much believe that if you haven't got a good defense in front of you, then it's immediately going to be harder to pick up points. And if you have a great defense in front of you, but you have someone absolutely useless in goal, then again it becomes infinitely harder. So I think we need to be really prioritizing a move for a young keeper who can be with us for the long term, or someone who will help us get back to where we are. People kind of turn their nose up at this idea of signing someone to sell, but in my opinion, it's signing someone to perform and attract interest. If he's attracting interest, it's because we're doing well, and if that means we're back in Europe, then of course there's going to be eyes on him and there's going to be interest in him. So for me, I think the goalkeeper spot has to be addressed, and we've already let Fabianski go. We need someone to come in. There's a big lot of wages that are going to be freed up in general, and I personally wouldn't be surprised if Areola does go. I've just got a sneaky feeling about it, and I think there would be interest from a Saudi or an MLS club to get someone who has been at Real Madrid, PSG, and all these big sides. And if not, I do think part of that budget will come from someone like Aguerd being sold. And I think there's tons of value in the centre-back market at the moment. And, we've apparently looked at Hajdari and players like Charlie Cresswell. Even together, you're talking about 20 million pounds or euros there. So if we were to sell Aguerd for anything around that, then you can still put money towards Suzuki, and you're in a good place. So I think looking to make a new break with goalkeepers and kind of wipe the slate clean. Maybe we give the young, is it Hungarian lad that we've got in the academy? Also absolutely massive. We give him a bit of a chance in the cups or something, and look to bring in someone like Suzuki. I'm quite happy with that. But I do think we need a new number one.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not averse to selling Areola. I'm actually pro selling Areola. I'm just a bit, Saudi makes sense. I'm just a bit unsure anyone will be willing to A, pay a transfer fee for him that we'd want, probably 8-10 million, and B, also his wages are such a significant amount. He's on over 100 grand a week at West Ham, so it's not like you're asking someone to come and get a player that's on 50-60. That's a huge outlay. Not everyone can afford that. But that's why I go back to Graham Potter, which says, I can't remember exactly, we have a lot of money not on the pitch at West Ham. I completely agree with him. But what you then can't do is go bench your goalkeeper on 125 grand a week, because then you're contributing to that. So maybe your theory that we might sell Areola could come to fruition, especially with bringing a new keeper, because I think he had the ump a little bit when Fabianski replaced him. Never mind a 22-year-old coming in and nicking his spot. I'm not sure he's going to be like, oh, that's all right, I'll go sit on the bench. Cheers, lads. I think you might see a bit of a reaction there. But I guess that's more important, why you need to get the keeper done immediately, which is if Areola turns around and said, I wish to leave now, he's telling you in the middle of July, not in the middle of August, and you're thinking, right, okay, we've now got 2 weeks to get him out and get someone else in. It's a big change. Right. We'll finish it up with a bit of fun, as always, Sloth. Before we do that, this guy, who you see quite often on this channel, is from Babbling Irons. You want to know and see more from him and Mike and Frankie over at Babbling Hours. The link to their channel is in the description below, so go head over there and give them a subscribe as well. Two things. One question and one topic. But the question is, out of 10, how much would you rate this transfer if it was to happen?
Oh, I'm going to say 9, just because
love that.
There is that young element, and it's West Ham, so there's bound to be some sort of error in his first season, and people go get all angry. But I rate him massively, and I think the sky's the ceiling with him. Sky's the limit. You can tell I've not had much sleep, but I really do like him, and I think from that cynical part of my brain, the marketing as well would be huge for us.
The second part, which is a bit more fun. Suzuki or Fab, if we had a cup final tomorrow, cup final team, that's why I always call it. What's your best team? What's your cup final team? Who's starting and goal for you, Suzuki or Fabianski?
Oh, I think for me it would be Suzuki,
right.
Just because, as I mentioned, it's that element of his physicality, and he's quite, one of the key aspects that I forgot to mention is that I like his reading of the game. And I know at times we've seen Areola, even Fabianski, get caught in no man's land and sort of just run in and do something and make a complete hash of it. Suzuki doesn't really do that. He does like to storm out, but it's generally from quite a good, confident position. He'll be on the edge of his area or something like that, and he'll make the decision to go and commit and put his head on the end of something. And I like that. But I think his overall physicality, the agility that he's showing is next level. And I think Fabianski would deserve to start. I love him for what he's done for the club. But if I was looking to win it, I'd put Suzuki.
Suzuki or Areola?
Given this season, Suzuki. If you'd asked me this when when Areola was in the Europa League, I'd have said Areola, because he's got that experience. But now I just kind of think that Areola 7 haircuts ago, you would have preferred him, but it's kind of a bit. But who would you prefer to buy this summer, Suzuki or Aaron Ramsdale? It's not even close. Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's who we've been linked to, right?
Yeah, I think it would be closer between Hermansen.
I was getting to him then. Suzuki or Hermansen, which one?
Yeah, I think Hermansen's the safer bet.
Yeah,
I think, but with my heart, I'm going to go Suzuki.
Love that.
Just because I think he's got that bit more potential.
Love that. Right, well, Sloth, thank you very much. If you guys at home have enjoyed this video, please don't be shy. Drop a like on it by clicking thumbs up, subscribing to Hammer's Chat, and pop over and subscribe to Babbling Hours. And next time we get linked to someone I don't know, Sloth will be back. We'll see you then.
次は解説です。少し独特のアクセントを感じますが、どちらかというと俗人的な話し方によるもののように感じますし、独特なため、少し聞きづらくも感じました。今回は非常によく使われるような良い表現やイディオムも多かったですが、少し多すぎたので、少しピックアップして解説しています。それでは本日の解説をチェックしてみましょ
う。Floor is yours.
The floor is yours は会議やプレゼン、ディスカッションの場面で使えるとても自然な表現です。直訳すると、床はあなたのものですが、ここでのフロアは発言の場を意味します。誰かに話し始めてもらいたいときに、はい、どうぞと促す。フォーマルにもカジュアルにも使える便利な表現です。ネイティブはプレゼンやトークショーなどでもよく使われ、日常会話でも覚えておくと非常に役立ちます。
Floor is yours. Floor is yours.
And he is built like a tank. Like he is a specimen.
スペシメンは標本や見本を意味する正式な単語で、学術、ビジネス、医療など幅広く使われます。ただし、日常会話では、体格のいい人や珍しい人というユーモラスなニュアンスでも使われることがあります。特にスポーツ選手や筋肉質な人を褒めるときなどに、少し皮肉や称賛を込めて使われる表現です。真面目な文脈とカジュアルな用法のギャップに注意しましょ
う。And he is built like a tank. Like he is a specimen, and he is built like a tank. Like he is a specimen. He's probably the pick of the bunch, you know.
ピックオブザバンチはいくつかある選択肢の中から一番良いものやベストな選択を指す表現です。バンチはひとまとまりやグループを意味し、ピックはその中で選ばれたものという意味になります。この表現はビジネス、日常会話、スポーツ、オーディションの話題など幅広く使われるため、会話に自然な彩りを加えるのにぴったりです。日本語では一番のお気に入りや一押しに近いニュアンスとしても使えます。
He's probably the pick of the bunch, you know. He's probably the pick of the bunch, you know. He is very much the sort of jewel in their crown.
ジュエル・イン・ワンズ・クラウンという表現は最も誇りに思う成果や存在を意味する比喩的なフレーズです。王冠に埋め込まれた宝石のように数ある中でも特に価値が高く象徴的な存在を指します。観光地、建築物、人物、製品、チームなどあらゆる文脈で使われます。例えば企業の看板商品や国の代表的観光地などに使うととても華やかで印象的な表現になります。
He is very much the sort of jewel in their crown. He is very much the sort of jewel in their crown. I've seen people kind of wax lyrical about his.
ワックスリリカルは単に話すのではなく、とても感情豊かに美しい言葉で情熱的に語る様子を表す表現で、例えば好きな旅先、音楽、芸術について話すときに使うとぴったりです。ワックスという単語には、もともといわゆるワックス以外の意味として、月が満ちるや感情や態度が強まるといった詩的な意味があります。この場合、徐々に強くなるや増していくの意味があり、つまり次第に詩的に熱弁になるというニュアンスになります。
I've seen people kind of wax lyrical about his. I've seen people kind of wax lyrical about his. So you kind of got to weigh that up and.
ウェイアップは天秤にかけて物の重さを比べるイメージから転じて物事を比べて考える意味の駆動詞です。特に意思決定をする前に選択肢の良し悪しや影響をよく考えるときに使います。ウェイだけでも重さを測るですが、アップがつくことで判断の材料を十分に比較して結論を出すというニュアンスが強くなります。ビジネス英語やプレゼン、日常の決断でも使える便利な表現です。
So you kind of got to weigh that up, and so you kind of got to weigh that up, and potentially opening yourself up to all the loopholes that.
ループホールはもともと中世の要塞などの銃眼、つまり外を覗く小さな穴を意味していました。そこから転じて法律や契約、ルールに潜む抜け道や盲点の意味で使われるようになりました。企業が税金逃れに使う税制の抜け穴や契約上の都合の良い裏道としてもよく登場します。つまり、ルールは守っているように見えて、本来の趣旨をすり抜ける手段という意味です。
Potentially opening yourself up to all the loopholes that. Potentially opening yourself up to all the loopholes that.
I guess to play devil's advocate with the inexperienced.
プレイデビルズアドバケートは、直訳すると悪魔の代弁者になるですが、実際の意味は、わざと反対意見を言って、議論を活性化させたり、見落としを防ぐための役割を果たすということです。特に、全員が同じ方向に意見を進めているときに、一歩立ち止まって、本当にこれでいいのかと考えさせるために使います。ビジネスやディスカッションでは重要な思考法で、あえて批判的な目を持つことはリスク回避にもつながります。
I guess to play devil's advocate with the inexperienced. I guess to play devil's advocate with the inexperienced.
People kind of turn their nose up at this idea of signing someone to sell.
Turn one's nose up は直訳すると鼻を上に向けるですが、つまり偉そうにする、気取る、見下す態度を取るという意味になります。特に自分の好みに合わないもの、価値がないと思っているものを軽蔑するように拒否する様子を表現するのにぴったりです。日常会話では、食べ物、提案、仕事などへの反応に使われます。皮肉っぽく、偉そうな態度や上から目線を表すときに便利です。
People kind of turn their nose up at this idea of signing someone to sell. People kind of turn their nose up at this idea of signing someone to sell and kind of wipe the slate clean.
ワイプザスレートクリーンは、もともと黒板などのスレートに書いたチョークを 拭いて消すことでリセットするというイメージから来ています。意味は、過去の過ちや不満、トラブルなどをすべて帳消しにして、新たにやり直すことで、人間関係だけでなく、ビジネスや人生の再出発、プロジェクトの見直しの文脈でもよく使われます。英語では、許しや再出発のポジティブなメッセージを含む表現です。
and kind of wipe the slate clean and kind of wipe the slate clean.
Because I think he had the ump a little bit.
アンプは主にイギリスで使われるスラングで不機嫌やむくれているという意味を持ちます。もともとはコブという意味のハンプから来た表現で、コブができるほど機嫌が悪い、不機嫌であるという意味で使われます。口語的な表現なので、正式な文章やビジネスシーンではあまり使われませんが、会話では比較的よく登場します。怒っているほど強くはなく、機嫌が悪いや不満そうといったニュアンスです。使うときはカジュアルな場面に限定しましょ
う。Because I think he had the ump a little bit. Because I think he had the ump a little bit.
And make a complete hash of it.
メイクエハッシュオブという表現は、細かく刻んだ料理であるハッシュから来ており、物事をごちゃごちゃにして台無しにするという意味を持ちます。口語的でイギリス英語に多く見られる表現ですが、仕事、計画、プレゼンなどあらゆる場面で、うまくやるべきことを、下手にやって失敗するときに使われます。ややユーモラスな響きもあるため、冗談交じりの会話にも使えます。
And make a complete hash of it. And make a complete hash of it.
いかがでしたか？鈴木彩艶の弱点は、キックの精度という感じでしたが、おそらくロングボールを蹴らされた時の印象なのかなと感じます。足元の技術にはあまり言及していませんが、特に問題は感じていないのでしょうし、それよりは、単純なシュートストップが、その反応と俊敏性が、まずは目を見張るものがあるということでしょうし、クロス対応も、比較的問題なさそうに見え、アレオラやファビアンスキと比べると特に、1対1の場面などでの対応力、判断力が、間違わないという印象なのでしょう。確かに1年後には、さらに評価が爆上がりして、手が出せなくなる可能性も十分にあるでしょうし、本当に買うならこの夏しかないのかもしれませんし、その鈴木彩艶の潜在能力が、ちょっと見ただけで、すぐに感じるようなものだったのだとも伺えます。鈴木彩艶に関しては、残留でも全然良いと思いますし、急ぐ必要もなさそうですが、本当にプレミアリーグのトップ3に入るためには、ウエストハムで活躍する方が、獲得されやすいのかなとも想像します。本当は、トップ6レベルに直行できるほどだとは思いますが、その前にプレミアの中堅チームで見れるとしても、それはそれでとても楽しみに感じますので、引き続き移籍ニュースを追っていきたいと思います。本日もご視聴いただきありがとうございました。またすぐにお会いしましょう。